1 year ago, I had an idea for a challenge video on Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation 1. I wanted to find out if we could beat the whole game without ever taking a single step on foot. When I originally started this challenge, it was decided by the Metal Gear speedrun community and myself that this was simply not possible. But a lot can change in a year. It's time for a much more up-to-date attempt at this challenge, as we once again ask ourselves, can you beat Metal Gear Solid 1 without taking any steps? Let's find out. Let's go over the rules, but first off, I just need to say that this might have been one of the most difficult challenges I've ever attempted, and this video took a very long time to make, so if you could subscribe, follow us on Twitch, join our Discord server, or why not all of the above? You know you want to. Back to the rules. Rule number 1, we cannot take a single step on foot. So no running or walking at all. If Snake takes a step during cutscenes or when climbing ladders, then that's fine since we can't control that. Rule number 2, we must defeat all 10 boss fights in this run. We will not be skipping any of them. Rule number 3, we will be playing on normal difficulty. I decided I didn't want to risk making things too easy, so I chose the difficulty I would normally do my casual playthroughs on. Rule number 4, if at any point we accidentally take a step, we must allow ourselves to be killed in order to reset the current area. And finally, rule number 5, as soon as we kill Liquid Snake, the final boss of the game, we win. If you haven't worked it out by now, our main method of movement is going to be crawling, so we're essentially bringing Snake closer to his namesake. Right at the start you can crawl under this water to collect a hidden ration. Rations are the game's healing items. However, we can't crawl back up as the top step is too high to crawl over. There is another way though. Our second method of movement is the single punch. With each single punch, Snake will inch forward slightly, and this can be used to get over this step. Crawling and single punches will be our two options when it comes to covering any distance in this run. This will make avoiding detection much more difficult, and if we ever do get discovered, it is essentially game over. The starting area has 2 guards we must avoid whilst we're waiting for the elevator to descend. Once it does come down, a 3rd guard joins the other 2. Now we just need to pick the right moment and crawl onto the elevator. There are 2 vents to choose from in order to get inside the main base, and we'll be taking the bottom one. There's a truck near the vent that contains a pistol, but to get it, Snake has to hop inside the truck. This might not count as a step, but it seemed like a grey area, so I decided to ignore the truck altogether. We crawl past the sleeping guard and go through the vent, until we make it out the other end. This room is the hangar, and we're supposed to avoid the guards and get to the elevator. However, there's a room upstairs we need to go to first. As we crawl to the top of the stairs, we see a surveillance camera, and we can't afford to let it spot us. But for some reason, we can't crawl over the top step. So to get up here, we have to position ourselves at the very top, stand up, wait for the camera to move, quickly punch our way over the top step, and then crawl as fast as we can out of range of the camera. The reason we need to get up here is that there is an open door up here that will lock itself automatically if we proceed down the elevator, and we absolutely need the item behind that door, so it's now or never. After avoiding some more cameras, we can collect the chaff grenades and the thermal goggles. Now, you're probably thinking, sure, the thermal goggles are useful, but why are they so essential to the run? Well, I will explain all when the time comes. Now we're free to use the elevator, and then we climb the ladder. We can use the single punch to more precisely move Snake into position. This also helps with activating elevators and ladders. We crawl our way to the DARPA chief's cell, and after he dies, we have our first mandatory battle. We haven't been able to collect any guns yet, but fortunately there is a SOCOM pistol right there waiting for us. This is a good time to mention that as long as we have our rations equipped, Snake will use one automatically when he loses all his health. There are several waves of enemies running into the room in groups of 3 at a time. Thankfully, we've teamed up with Meryl as she helps us to gun them down. Partway through the battle, the guards will throw some grenades through the door, but as long as we anticipate it, we can crawl to the top corner of the room and avoid damage. Once we take out all the guards, we make our way back to the elevator and go down another floor to the armory. There are several rooms here which we can load up on a few things: ammo, grenades, and more importantly, C4. We use the C4 to blow a couple holes in a couple walls. And then we find our first boss fight, Revolver Ocelot. This fight is in a square room and the centre is rigged with explosives, so we must outgun Ocelot from afar. We're never going to outpace him by crawling though, and Ocelot can even bounce his bullets off the walls. There is a trick to this boss though. We can see Ocelot's ammo count on the screen. Every time Ocelot fires his 6th bullets, he must reload. If we interrupt his reloading by shooting him, he will run away. However, if we wait for him to finish reloading all 6 bullets and then shoot him, he won't run away. He'll simply fire back. If you rinse and repeat this method, then it's possible to outlast him as long as our rations are equipped. After we beat him, we can make our way back to the hangar to avoid the newly placed guards, and then through the main hangar doors. Either the SIGs or the thermal goggles can help us dodge the lasers, but we need to make sure we angle Snake so his feet don't get caught by any of the lasers. Now we're outside, and the first thing we're going to do is disarm some hidden claymore mines by crawling over them. We can use the thermal goggles again to find the mines. We'll be keeping these claymore mines for later as they will come in very handy. As we advance through the snowfield, we are approached by our second boss fight, Vulcan Raven, inside a tank. The intended method is to run up to the tank and throw grenades on top to take out the driver, but since we can only crawl, we don't get very far before we get blasted by the tank's main cannon for massive damage. So here's our strategy. Normally the tank waits for you to approach, but if we crawl back to the hangar doors, the tank drives closer. Now we can throw a chaff grenade out which temporarily knocks out the electronic devices in the area, and we can quickly start crawling back towards the tank while its main cannon is knocked out. We can use another chaff on the way should we need to. This allows us to get close to the tank, which renders the main cannon useless as they can't fire it at close range. However, there is a machine gunner on top of the tank we have to deal with, but as long as we have our rations equipped we can take the damage. We stick to the left wall as we approach to prevent getting run over. There are even more grenades and chaff grenades to collect up here. With the help of the chaff grenades we can crawl into position and then time our regular grenade throws to defeat the tank. Something else to note is that our maximum ammo capacity and ration capacity increases after certain boss fights. For example, we can now hold 3 rations instead of 2. We crawl up through the nuclear building, avoiding the guards, and then we grab these chaff grenades for later. We try crawling up the stairs, but like with few of the other staircases in this game, we can't crawl over the bottom step for some reason. So we punch our way over it and then we crawl to the elevator. We go down 1 level, avoid some guards, grab some stun grenades, and the Nikita missile launcher. We need to use this remote control missile on the level below to deactivate the electrified floor, and even then the whole area is filled with deadly gas. There are a couple of rooms here though where we can find a FAMAS machine gun and a gas mask to allow us to survive in the gas for longer. Once we crawl through the gas corridor and over some corpses, we find our third boss fight, the Ninja. This is a very fast boss and he moves around the whole room during the fight. Something else to note, if the ninja sees us holding a weapon, he'll make us pay for it with a vicious sword attack. Other than that, he hits fast and often. If we start crawling around, then he can use his strongest attack, a stomp from up high. The ninja boss has several phases, and the first phase is the shortest, but a move he likes to spam a lot is his spin kick. If we have good timing, then it is possible to get a punch in to interrupt this. Learning this timing is the best chance we have of dealing damage while staying on the same spot. After causing enough damage, he goes into phase 2. It's not too different, but he does seem to get a bit more aggressive. The plan now is to find the best spot to position ourselves, and the good news is we can use chaff grenades to stun him temporarily as he's wearing an exoskeleton suit. We can use this to buy time to crawl to where we want to be. We can even use this time to grab a ration and more chaff grenades in the bottom left of the room. The spot we want to be for the fight is right here. This way the ninja can only attack us from left or right, and no other angle. This allows us to catch him in a combo. When we hit him 3 times, he jumps over our head to the other side, so we can swivel on the spot and keep timing our punches to catch him before he kicks us. Although if we do this for too long, he'll break out the stomp attack again. Thankfully, we can still use the chaff grenades to stun him. But then to my surprise, we were actually able to interrupt his stomp attack with a very well timed punch, and I was never able to pull it off again. The next phase is actually the easiest one so far. He uses camouflage to hide, and then he runs straight at us, but we can still clearly see his silhouette, so we simply just time our punches when he gets close. Now for his troll phase. He will slowly approach us, but as soon as we attack, he warps to the other side and hits a devastating blow. Safe to say his punches hurt a lot more than ours. The trick to this part is to throw a single punch to make him warp behind us, and then quickly turn on the spot to beat him to the punch. He tried to throw us off our game by warping several times, but as long as we're quick we can hit him before he hits us. And as soon as we land the final hit, we have to drop down and crawl away as quick as possible as he explodes into an AoE attack. We did manage to avoid damage from his first AoE attack, but as he moves around the room we do get hit by the second one, putting us on very low HP. But we keep our distance and we shoot him 3 times to end the boss fight. We make friends with Octagon, who goes into hiding, and then we head to the previous floor to meet up with Meryl again. We slowly stalk her to the women's toilets, and afterwards we're supposed to head out the north exit of the building. However, at this point of the game, this entire floor is completely free of all guards, so we take advantage by collecting every item on the floor. As we exit north, Meryl suddenly pulls a gun on us, so we quickly use a stun grenade to knock her out. And that's when the fourth boss reveals himself, Psycho Mantis. This boss uses psychic powers to hurl objects from around the room at us. Psycho Mantis can predict all of our movements before we even make them, but it's well known by now that in order to get around this, we simply unplug our PS1 controller from port 1 and plug it into port 2. Something that might not be so well known is that we can crouch to avoid a majority of the objects he throws at us, which we will need to do since we won't be fast enough to dodge in any other way. However, Mantis can fire some energy blasts at us, which we can't just crouch to avoid. It is possible to shoot Mantis before you can do this if we're quick enough, but if Mantis does start throwing these from off screen, sometimes it's easier just to crawl behind a desk to take cover. But with some practice, most of this boss fight ends up being just a routine of crouching, standing, shooting, crouching, standing, shooting. Now and then he will mix it up by possessing Meryl to shoot us, but another stun grenade knocks her right back out again. When Psycho Mantis' health gets low, he starts sending all the objects in the room at us at the same time. Normally you would need to dodge all of this, but you can just hit the deck and avoid all the damage. As soon as he's done spinning his chairs around, we get up in his face and gun him down point blank for the win. We collect all the items in the room and carry on going north. We now have to crawl through the snow whilst being attacked by wolves. The safest way through here is to show no mercy and gun down every single wolf one by one. We emerge out on a path to the communication tower. Meryl shows us how to avoid the mines hidden in the area, but you can just crawl straight up and still avoid them all. This is where Meryl should have taken a page out of our book and hit the deck. She's wounded by a sniper, and the only way to fight back is to find a sniper rifle of our own, and thus begins our major backtrack all the way to the armory to obtain the game's sniper rifle, the PSG-1. This is fairly tedious in a casual playthrough, but it takes about 4 times longer when you can only crawl. The armory has even more guards than before, which proved to be quite challenging to avoid this time around at our slow crawling speed. We make our way back where Meryl was shot, and yes, we have to gun down a new wave of wolves every time we pass through. We can now have a sniper fight against boss number 5, Sniper Wolf. Since Snake automatically lies down on his front when using the sniper rifle anyway, this fight is played basically the same as it would in a casual run, so just outgun Sniper Wolf until she goes down. We head further north after she's beaten, collect all the items in the area, and then get ambushed and captured. Ocelot tortures us for a bit, and then we end up locked up with our inventory completely empty. You can call Otacon to come meet you, but all he gives us is tomato ketchup. We can use this though. First of all, we need to crawl into the perfect spot, with our feet right at the door, and then we apply the ketchup for some fake blood. The patrolling guard sees this, opens the door. The reason this is the perfect spot is that as soon as we stand up, we're in the perfect position to grab the guard from behind and choke him out. Now, as we crawl to freedom, we can collect our items and weapons again. Just make sure to throw the bomb away that Ocelot planted in there. Now we need to go all the way back to where we were ambushed, but on the way there we need to make sure to visit the gas corridor once more. There's a door here that we couldn't open before, and inside is the body armor. This is the very reason we had to collect those thermal goggles all that time ago back on our first time in the hangar, because if we didn't get the thermal goggles then, they would have spawned here instead of the body armor, and we really need this body armor for the section coming up. Once we get back to the communication tower, we head inside. We turn a corner, and almost immediately we get discovered by a surveillance camera. This causes guards to spawn in pairs from the start of the tower endlessly. The intended method here is to run and gun our way to the very top of the tower with the FAMAS, but for obvious reasons we can't do that. We would have to crawl all the way to the top, taking the time to gun down a pair of guards every few seconds, and even having extra guards attack us from above now and then. But even after using all the ammo and all the stun grenades that we have in our inventory, we would run out of rations and die before even getting close to halfway up. After all, there are 29 flights of stairs, and we can only get past 8 of them. This is where my previous attempt at this challenge ended. After all, we were 21 flights of stairs short from reaching the top. But now we know about a new skip in the game, accidentally discovered by Bobber, aptly dubbed the Bobber skip. You see, the tower is 29 flights high, but there's a door partway up that is 11 flights high. The door isn't locked, but it is frozen shut. The door is intended to be a shortcut back into the tower from the other side, but the Bobber skip actually allows us to clip through the door from this side. So now all we need to do is make it beyond the 11th flight of stairs so we can perform the skip. We've been preparing for this very moment. This is exactly why we needed the body armor, to reduce all the damage we take from bullets. But that's not the only plan. Before we let the surveillance camera see us, we can plant the claymore mines that we disarmed earlier along the starting corridor in a line. This will slow the first few waves of guards down and buy some valuable time that we need for a head start. We make sure to plant each one about 7 punches apart. Even though we can carry up to 14 claymores at once, we can only actually plant 8 at one time, but that will have to do. Something else we can do to buy time is throw a grenade in front of the surveillance camera instead of crawling in front of it. This will skip the short cutscene that shows the guards approaching. But even with all that, we still only make it past the first or second flight of stairs before all the claymore mines are set off. This is where the body armor comes in. The idea is to keep it equipped to reduce damage and then use rations manually when we need healing. With all this, we're actually able to make it past 11 flights of stairs and to the frozen door. But we're not out of the woods yet. We now need to perform the very specific movements required to clip through this door whilst being attacked by guards. In order to perform the bobber skip, we need to back up against this door on the far left side, enter first person mode, look about 45 degrees to the left so that the corner of our radar just crosses over this line below the staircase above, and then pull the pin on a chaff grenade without throwing it. As the grenade explodes in our hand, the impact is just enough that it pushes Snake through the frozen door. This only works if Snake takes damage at just the right position and angle. However, performing all of these actions with endless spawning guards proves to be very difficult. It took a lot of attempts, but finally the stars aligned and we were just able to get the bobber skip right as the guard was in our face about to shoot us. Under normal circumstances, we would need to go all the way to the top of that tower and then abseil down the side of it to this very platform, all whilst Liquid Snake fires at us from an attack helicopter. Normally there would be a couple of guards on this bridge along with a short cutscene to show the helicopter re-emerging, but they are also skipped along with the bobber skip. As soon as we enter the second tower, we can pick up the Stinger rocket launcher. We now need to crawl all the way to the top of the second tower. There aren't any guards here, but there are a lot of surveillance cameras, so we'll be needing a few chaff grenades. Now we're on the roof and the attack helicopter returns as a proper boss fight, and it's called the Hind. The Hind can only be damaged by the Stinger missiles, but without being able to do our lot of dodging, the Hind's machine gun fire is going to hit us a lot. As soon as the fight starts, Snake is stood out in the open. We start crawling as quick as we can looking for cover, but we're never going to avoid the first shot. After that, the plan is to stay between these two walls and wait for a clear shot on the Hind as it flies by. As long as we aim accurately, the missile will home in on the Hind to a degree. We usually want to crawl around a corner as soon as we deal damage, as the Hind usually counters by firing right back at us. Our radar proves to be very useful in this fight, as we can see which direction the Hind is in at all times. This helps to preempt where we need to be crawling to slightly ahead of time. With this strategy, things were going well, until we ran out of missiles. The Hind was one hit away from defeat. There were some extra missiles, but they were in the bottom right of the roof, and that corner provides very little cover, but we didn't have a choice. We had to make or break for it, and hope that we could get the missiles before we died. Fortunately, the Hind flew low as we grabbed the missiles, so we got ready to fire, and as soon as the Hind emerged, we nailed it with the last shot, although the Hind did get one last shot on us before the cutscene could play. In a last-ditch effort, the Hind fires rockets at the roof. I wasn't sure if this dealt damage or not, but I didn't want to find out, so we crawled to the left as quickly as we could. With 0 rations left, we only just managed to survive. Now we need to make it all the way back down those stairs again. Now the elevator that wasn't working before can be used. We ride it all the way down to ground level, only to get ambushed by 4 guards, all using stealth camouflage. I tried several methods here, stun grenades to FAMAS, but these guards are a lot more durable than all the other guards we've come across. Not to mention, since we're so limited on movement, dodging their attacks becomes a real challenge. The game doesn't even allow us to plant any mines on the elevator before we move it. I took many deaths here, and in my numerous attempts at survival, I was only ever able to defeat 1 of the 4 guards at best. But the solution ended up being way simpler than I thought. The guards may be fitted with layers of protection against bullets, but they still need to breathe. So in the strangest combat tactic ever, we crawl towards the guards and choke them out one at a time. Much quicker and much more sadistic than just shooting them. So now we can get back down to the ground. There are several surveillance cameras down here, but a chaff grenade or 2 gets us through. As soon as we get outside, we are thrusted straight into another sniper fight. This boss fight is a rematch of the previous sniper fight, but again Snake snipes lying down, so we can win this the same way as we would casually. Now we enter the blast furnace. This area is basically separated into two halves. There's only one guard on this side, so we take him out. The only way over to the other side of the blast furnace is to back against this wall and walk along a catwalk whilst avoiding a crane. This is certainly taking steps though. I was dreading this part and I wasn't sure if I could find another way across, but I was determined to find something. There is an elevator that leads down to the other side, but it starts at the bottom and it can't be called up. You have to already be on the other side in order to get inside it. I even tried to lure a guard over to the elevator with a Nikita missile, wondering if I could get him inside to activate it, but no luck. If there was a vent or a crawl space in the area, then we probably could have got out of bounds. It seems like we're going to have to try something with the catwalk itself. After some experimenting, I did have an idea. First of all, we can use a missile to destroy the moving crane and get it out of the way. Now, normally, if we back ourselves against a wall and move side to side, Snake would of course take steps. However, if we spam R1 to rapidly equip and unequip our gun, whilst moving along the catwalk, Snake kinda just shuffles and jives his way across without the full motion of taking steps. I wasn't sure about this when it came to our no steps on foot rule, but it's either this or the run dies here, and I really wanted to make it to the end. If you feel like the run should have died here in the blast furnace, then please feel free to let me know in the comments. But for now, we move on to the cargo elevator. As soon as we start moving it, we get ambushed by several more guards. These are the more durable guards like the ones we saw using camouflage on the tower elevator. I assume the best method once again would be to crawl over to each one and choke them out, but I managed to group a couple of them together by chance and gun them both down at the same time, so it was much easier than before. Once we're at the bottom, we enter another boss fight, a rematch against Vulcan Raven, and he's packing some serious heat. The room is laid out kind of like a grid, and Raven moves around in search of Snake. As soon as he spots us, he rains down rapid fire on us. The usual method is to stay on the move and avoid being seen, and then get the drop on Raven, but this becomes very difficult when we can't run. As soon as the fight starts, Raven is on our right. We quickly equip the body armor and try to crawl around the corner as fast as we can, but despite that, we're not fast enough and we take a hit. Our best strategy is to find a safe corner and guide some remote missiles towards him, but we need to make sure he doesn't see the missiles coming or he'll just shoot them out of the air. Whilst looking for a good spot to hide, we back Snake into this little nook here. This seemed to confuse Raven. We fired a missile right as he came around the corner, and he sort of tried to shoot us and the missile at the same time. As a result, he couldn't hit either of us. From there, we were able to spam missiles at him until he was beaten. Moving on, we enter the final corridor before we find Metal Gear itself. But this corridor is rammed full of surveillance cameras equipped with sentry guns. A couple of chaff grenades gets us through. Now we're finally at Metal Gear itself. We make our way to the top using the ladders and crawling over the scaffolding. There's only actually one guard patrolling here, but if he sees us, then there will be an infinite number of guards endlessly spawning until we either get away or die. And since we can't exactly make a break for it, we need to make sure this guard never sees us. The reason I emphasize this with this guard in particular is that the game requires us to tediously climb up and down Metal Gear Rex a total of 3 times, and each time we pass by this section, this one guard will respawn here regardless on whether we killed him on a previous trip. The safest way to take him out is at a distance with a sniper rifle each time we pass through. So the first reason we have to climb back down is to retrieve the POW key that Snake dropped all the way at the bottom. When we get down there, we find that it's been eaten by a rat. We're not about to go crawling after a rat though, so we just blow him up with a missile instead. Once we take the key back up to the top, we find out we have to backtrack twice to 2 previous areas. And yes, the sentry gun cameras respawn every trip, even if we destroy them with rockets. And yes, there are now more guards lurking in the previous areas that we have to avoid. The silver lining is that most collectibles that we pass by respawn with each trip, so this allows us to top up our rations and stinger ammo. But once we finally have all that tedium out of the way, we get locked into the control room as gas starts to pour in. We get our gas masks on and call Otacon to open the door for us. Once we're free, we give chase to Liquid Snake, who jumps into Metal Gear Rex, and this kicks off a very intimidating boss fight. We have to destroy this giant walking death mobile equipped with rockets, a Gatling gun and lasers, all without taking a step. To say the odds are against us is an understatement. So the intended method is to fire rockets at the device on Rex's shoulder. This is the scanner device that allows Rex to actually see where we are. Since Rex takes a few seconds to start moving, we can crawl over to find some cover. This helped us for a while, but eventually Rex was starting to hit us even behind the cover. I wondered if maybe we could simply tank Rex's onslaught as we fired off rockets, and then simply hope hope we had enough rations to survive, and this actually worked. With the scanner destroyed, Liquid has to reveal himself in order to see us, which now means he is our new target. The problem was, phase 2 of this boss fight completely refills his health bar, and we have next to no health left after the first phase. Not to mention that each time we die we have to repeat the first phase all over again. Needless to say, we died a lot to this boss. But in our efforts we started to make a few discoveries. If we're a specific distance away from Rex, he will either just use the Gatling gun, or he'll use the Gatling gun with some laser attacks thrown in, but he'll never use the rockets. And better yet, the body armor reduces the damage from the Gatling gun. This isn't enough though. No matter how fast we destroy his scanner, we still take too much damage to have any chance of surviving phase 2. But that's when the Metal Gear speedrunners came to my rescue. They told me about a trick you can do in this very fight to save HP, and it's a strange one. So whenever we enter first person view, if we then hold either L1 or R1, Snake will lean slightly left or right respectively. This is usually used to get a better view of our surroundings or to peek around corners, but it also affects Snake's hitbox. If we lean during the boss fight, then for whatever reason, Rex's Gatling gun and his laser attacks will always miss. We can stand here leaning forever and neither will be able to hit us. The same cannot be said for Rex's rockets though, but like I mentioned before, if we can get a specific distance away, Rex will never use the rockets. It turns out to get into that perfect spot, just perform 16 single punches right as we gain control of Snake at the start of the fight. So now phase 1 is just a case of firing off a rocket, quickly unequipping the stinger, leading to avoid the damage, equip the stinger, and then repeat until the scanner is destroyed. It's still quite challenging to avoid all damage completely, so Rex does get a few hits on us, but with practice we were able to get by phase 1 without using a single ration. This gives us all 5 rations for phase 2. Now you're probably thinking we can just use the lean tactic again to beat phase 2, but unfortunately phase 2 starts Snake off much further distance away from Rex, which means right away Rex spams his rockets, but now we have a much bigger target. To cause damage now, all we have to do is attack Rex's front. Since we're never going to be able to crawl close enough without taking serious damage, the plan is to now simply tank all of Rex's hits and see if our rockets can kill him first. Whenever we get hit, Snake's accuracy gets thrown off, so this is a major struggle, but it simply came down to practice. We needed to line up our shots and take them as fast as we could before a rocket could hit us. We use all 5 rations to stay alive as long as possible, and after many attempts, we finally managed to land the final hit before Rex does. And not a moment too soon, Metal Gear Rex is down. But the hell isn't over yet. Liquid is still alive, and he wants to settle this once and for all in a fist fight atop Metal Gear itself. And to make matters worse, we have a time limit before the building gets nuclear bombed. At first, I didn't think this part was going to be too bad, since it's just a fist fight, but how wrong I was. Like with many bosses, Liquid has multiple phases, and the first phase has Liquid wasting time by running away from us. Since we can only crawl after him, it becomes very difficult to actually rack up much damage on him at all. We were finally able to get his pattern down and land a few hits here and there, but this was not fast enough by a long shot. We could barely put a dent in his health bar before the time limit was up. His constant running away was getting very frustrating. After learning his pattern almost perfectly, we were finally able to cause enough damage to get him into phase 2, which sees him fight much more aggressively. We were able to get in a few more hits like this, but he starts to hit us back a lot more now, and he still runs around a lot, and what's more, he will now stomp us if we start crawling. Once again, the time limit rears its head before we can even get over half of Liquid's health bar down, and once more, I needed the speedrunner's wisdom. As it happens, in phase 1, it's possible to catch Liquid in a continuous combo of single punches. It's much easier to get into the right spot to pull off this combo when you can run, as all we seemed to be able to do was only land a few punches before Liquid escapes the combo. But eventually, with enough tries, the stars aligned and we were able to catch him in a very long single punch combo early on. This was the most damage we'd managed to deal this early on in the fight, so we had to take advantage of this. There are a couple of other strats we can use. If we stand up right as Liquid is about to stomp on us, we still take the damage, but we're able to hit him right back with a combo. Once Liquid starts to get low on health, he starts to use a charge attack for some decent damage, and it knocks us down. But hilariously, if we just crouch as he charges, he goes right through us for some reason. This even buys us time to land another combo on him. With all those strats combined, we finally managed to beat Liquid, and with only 8 seconds to spare, but it's still not over. Now, along with Meryl, we have to escape the base before it collapses. We no longer have anything in our inventory, but right as we gain control of Snake, we find a ration behind us and one more ahead of us near the stairs. As we enter the parking lot, we're automatically discovered by a surveillance camera. This causes guards to swarm the room in waves of 3. We need to get to the bottom left where Meryl is, but of course we're being gunned down the whole way. There's a third ration just below the vehicle that Meryl is in, and then we manage to get in the vehicle with Meryl and escape. Now we need to gun down a couple of waves of guards with a turret, but then we see that Liquid survived again, and he's chasing us down with a gun of his own. We need to keep Liquid from firing at us as often as we can by making sure we don't miss him with our own shots, because if Liquid fires at us, he won't miss. The issue is though, at this point, we don't have enough rations or health to survive his gunfire, and it all starts with the damage that we take from the guards before we get in the vehicle. Even if we kill any of these guards, another one spawns a few seconds later to take his place, and without any guns of our own in our inventory, killing them is not easy. I did notice something though. As the guards enter the room, they seem to have their set positions in the room that they head towards. One at the top, one at the bottom right, and another one that follows us to the bottom left. So the strategy was, quickly choke out the guard that follows us, and then let the other 2 guards head to their spots. This buys us just enough time to collect the third ration and get in the vehicle whilst taking as little damage as possible. Now when we have to shoot with Liquid, we have 2 rations remaining. We keep our fire on him the whole way as much as possible, but the long drawn out gun battle takes both our rations. But even so, we were just able to outlast him until the crash at the end. How appropriate is it that we defeat the final boss whilst lying down on our front, even in the cutscene? We have done it. The run is over. Can we beat Metal Gear Solid 1 without taking any steps? Well, I suppose that depends on whether you consider this as taking steps or not. Ultimately, it's up to you guys. But either way, thank you so much for watching. This felt like an insane accomplishment. Big thank you to the Metal Gear speedrunners that helped me out with the information here and there, and I would have quit a long time ago if it had not been for them, especially Plywood and Hor 5 Test. Their content will be linked below. Please do subscribe if you love these kind of challenge videos on old school PlayStation games. After all, this is my 5th one on the channel now. Let's keep that momentum going. Also, please consider following us on Twitch, and if you can, join our Discord server for an advanced look into my ideas for future challenges. Links are all below. And I have to thank our current Twitch subscribers, as is tradition, by listing them right here. We have T Bruin, Big Wolf Chris, Avis U, Game Time Official, Lacerated Hunter, John Fitz49, Duncan F93, Jelpy, This Toaster Is Not a Microwave, Lit Game 83, DTG Fin 30, Kai _ Digital Gamecast, Owl 4 Forks, Jamhead 91, Evolved Pixel, Swifty _ Smithy, and Major Vengeance. Thank you guys for everything, and right now there will be 2 of our previous videos on screen that are very much like this one. One is on the OG Ratchet & Clank where we're not allowed to use packs, and the other is on Rayman 2 where we're not allowed to hover. Give them a try. Go on. You know you want to. Please?